Welcome to After Hours Authors. In the moonlight, the bright red sand of the planet Prima looked purple. I stumbled, gasping for breath, leaning over my knees as I inhaled. A tear was working its way up the hem of my dress. My footprints were scattered across the purple sand behind me, mirroring my wild and desperate footfalls across the desert. Sand was in my socks now, gritty against my feet. I couldn't see the forest anymore, only the achingly long purple landscape and silent mining machines. Ahead of me was the faint yellow glow of the train station in the moonlight. My stomach tightened as I thought I heard voices shouting behind me, hunting, searching for us. My heart was pounding in my chest. Mila pointed to the platform across the desert. "We need to get there before they do." Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I nodded to Mila and started running again. Running for my life. That is an excerpt from Sapling's Orbit by Spencer Rose, who joins me in this episode today. We had a really fun chat. It was really cool to talk about what it's like writing and releasing novellas and then bringing it together in an omnibus. And she's working on a full-length novel that's going to be out very soon. Keep your fingers crossed. In this chat, we talk about the novella experience, how she came to writing, what's inspired her, and what it's like selling on your own website as well. So if any of that has interested you as an author, I'm sure you'll get a lot from this chat. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Spencer. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks so much, Jess. I'm super excited to be here.
Now, I'm really excited to chat with you because you have quite a unique take on the sci-fi space. And I'm really excited because you've taken a novella approach to writing your stuff. And I really want to talk about that because I'm sure there are some authors out there interested in what that process is like. And I'm sure they'll take a lot away from our chat today. But I'm going to start with a bit of a get to know you question, which I ask most authors who come on, which is if you could only read one book series or one book forever and ever, what would it be?
Yeah, I found this one really hard to answer because I mean, as everyone does, but I do often go back and reread books again, and then I binge a bit too hard, and then I burn out. So I was thinking about the book series that I've reread, and there are things like, well, like the Murderbot Diaries, obviously being sci-fi novellas, is a series that I love that is super fun. Um, the Ancillary Justice series by Anne Leckie, um, the Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. Um, so there's and actually, you know what? I do love also Margaret Atwood with the Year of the Flood series, but to be honest, I started rereading that during COVID, and that was a bad idea. So, look, I think the ones that I love to read are just deeply immersive worlds, but also really quite, I don't know, they're all pretty, have really interesting, complex topics.
Mm.
That's stuff that I really enjoy reading. It's not the stuff that I necessarily write all that much, but I enjoy that kind of layering where you kind of have this rich escapism as well as you've got a lot to think about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the real depth of the worlds. I can definitely see that in your works, even if you haven't done exactly what those authors have done. I can see how it's inspired what you've written. I've been reading the first novella in your series, Sapling's Orbit, which is a part of the Biokin Chronicles. I'm very excited to read the rest of it. Love that. I'm really into it. I'm almost finished that first one, and I can see there's such a depth of world that you've created. And I can see the imagination and the depth that you've drawn from some of those stories. So, excellent choices and
Yeah,
excellent
thank you.
inspiration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank them. It's all their hard work that I just draw on the well of inspiration. But yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed writing them.
Now, tell us about how you came to writing. Everybody comes to the writing experience in a different way. What's your journey been?
Yeah. Well, I think that I think that in some ways it's sort of the stereotypical story in that, ever since I was young, I always wanted to write. So, ever since I discovered books in primary school, just hanging out at the school library, I spent all my time reading. And as soon as I discovered that you could write and you could write those books, I was like, what? I always wanted to do that. Um, so I actually spent years and years and years really trying to be a writer in primary school and high school, and then I went to university to study writing. But then the grim reality of that actually, all the university lecturers sort of said, "Hey guys, you actually can't make a living being a writer unless you're Stephen King, which is like the 1% of the 1%. You guys all need to get day jobs." And we're all like,
So
what?
heartbreaking. So
Heartbreaking. I
heartbreaking.
was like 18 and I'd moved from the country to the big city. And I thought, I'm going to be a writer. It's going to be great. And I was just crushed. Um, and look, to be fair, I mean, look, it is true that even when I go to writing events now, I went to Conflux last year, and we were on. I was lucky enough to be on one of the panels, and one of the authors turned around to everyone on the panel and said, "Do you guys all have a day job?" And everyone said, "Yes, I have a day job." And so yeah, the point is that I just got a day job. I got a day job for about 20 years, give or take, is that if I've got my maths right? So I just did that, and I didn't write because I didn't think it was possible. And then during COVID, I discovered this whole indie publishing thing, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And because by this point I'd now worked in digital marketing for 20 years, I was like, "Oh, like." You can just write the books and you can market them yourself, and you don't need to go through all the stuff. And it was a real kick for me to be like, for me, COVID was like this great reflection on your life. Was like, is this how you want your life to end, with no toilet paper and having never written anything? So for me, yeah, it was a big motivator for me. So, and of course, work had dried up, so I just had time and this wonderful little imitation of universal basic income where I kind of had that. In Australia, for anyone listening overseas, we had a small stipend if you ran your own business. Um, and so I just thought, you know what, this is really the time. I'm just going to try and write something and kind of see what happens. But I sort of fell back in love with it, I guess. I sort of remembered what I loved about it for all that time. And now I really just don't imagine my life without writing.
Amazing. I love that journey. I think a lot of people go down that road. Similar to you, I went to uni and I studied English. I did an arts degree. And you do sit in those creative writing classes, and there's so many people, and you're bringing in pieces, and people are critiquing it. And there's some helpful aspects to that when you have people giving you critical feedback. There are some things to learn, and it does make you a better writer. But in
It does.
Australia, the market is very small in the publishing space. I come from a traditional publishing marketing background, so I know
Yeah,
that it's a
right.
really small market. We are a small market in comparison
Yeah.
to the rest of the world. But the downside of that is that you do hear that message sometimes of, oh, it's so small, don't even bother. And I don't know if that's the most helpful message because, like you've shared, writing is such an enjoyable experience. And if you love it, you should do it. And you
Yeah.
shouldn't be held back by, oh, but it's small and you can't do it and you can't live off it. I don't know if that's the best way to approach creative processes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is it's really about working out what you want out of writing. And there is a bit where it's like, are you just happy to write and tell your story and kind of have it out in the world? Or is it something that you want to have as a business? it really kind of changes the way that you approach it. And I think for me, when I was younger, I thought if I don't write, if I'm not a full-time writer, then I am just a failure. Just point blank, you are just not a real writer unless you are full-time. And I think, I don't know whether people still kind of have that perception or whether that's just I don't know whether that's just a me thing or whether that's if you have a day job, you're not a real writer. But when you actually talk to writers, you actually discover that everyone has a full-time job. So there's kind of a inside the writing world reality versus the outside perception. So I think it really is just like when you work out what you want out of your writing, you can better kind of choose that path where it's like, you know what, I like that I can just write stuff and just send it out into the world, and that gives me joy. And whatever happens with that is whatever happens. Um, but it's kind of working within the reality of the universe, which is, it is really hard to make it full time. Some people do, but it's a long journey that takes a good decade of writing before you can even sort of get even close to it, I think. But then just kind of making your peace with that path, if that's how you want to approach it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I do hear that in a lot of creative spheres. I'm a musician as well. And so you hear a lot of people say, oh, but you haven't made it. So you're not successful. And
Yeah,
I don't know, I really don't like that message because I think a lot of art that performs well has come off the back of art that hasn't. And the only way you get better at your craft is just to turn up and do it, right? And so, like you say, it could take 10 years for you to become a really polished writer. And the
yeah,
only way you're going to get there is to write really bad
yeah,
stories and just to do it and to enjoy it
yeah,
and to find joy in the creative process. So, like you say, I think, knowing your reason for showing up and for doing it. And if you do want to become that best-selling author that lives off their writing, well, put in the hours, like start writing now, start creating, get better at it, get really polished at it, and you'll have a much greater chance of success. So, oh, that's great. I love hearing your journey. What's your writing process like? Are you a plotter? Do you pants it a bit? How do you do it?
yeah. Look, I would say like 80% plotter. So I think there's I mean, I'm not sure about everyone's approach. I mean, everyone's different. But for me, I think I've got a really rock solid plot when I go in. And then by the time I sort of get to the end, I'm like, oh, there are a lot of plot holes here, or there are like characters that kind of doing things that are like, oh, that character wouldn't really do that, or like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. So, look, I have a pretty solid, I guess it's a bit of a North Star, right? I know where I'm going generally, and look, there's always the rewriting process. So I'm pretty much a plotter, and there's a little bit of wiggle room just for kind of fun. Like maybe it might be there is an action sequence here to make it have this happen, and I
Yeah.
kind of might just do that on the fly because it's fun. Um, so I generally know where I'm going, which helps. Otherwise, in terms of my writing process, I also really enjoy dictation. So I
Mm.
heard a podcast a few years ago about it, and they just said, "Oh, you write three times faster," and I thought, "Wow, what a hook! I'm sold."
Give it a go.
And yeah, I'll give it a go. And so I just started walking around, just my area, just on morning walks. And I did the first draft of the current novel I'm working on just over the summer break. It took me like, I think about 6 weeks of just sort of maybe 1 hour walk each morning. And I had written the entire first draft. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was really good. I mean, it's required a lot of, like, I mean, like everything requires lots of edits, but it was really good to have a solid something on the page you can work with.
Mm.
So I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I have heard a few people use dictation as a process. So I think I need to try it. It sounds like it's quite an interesting process, but 6 weeks, that's incredible. So well done, you. What's your editing process like? If you're, let's say this current project you're working on, you've spent
Mm.
6 weeks dictating. Obviously, you've then got to go back through what you've prepared and start to edit and tweak and reshape it. What's that process like for you?
Yeah, so I think like most writers, there's always a period. I think they call it at rest. I think is where they kind of just leave it to sit and kind of percolate, and you come back later and realize it's a train wreck, and you need to fix a lot of it. So I have a couple of rounds of that where I kind of leave it a couple of months and then come back and read it, and then sort of realize all the glaring holes. Um, I do have a. I mean, it's always a village to take to write a book. So I've got a lovely editor they work with that helps me with this early version. They look at it and they sort of point out all the big things I need to work on,
Yep.
whether it's holes or characters or whatever. I've got a couple of other writer friends or beta readers that I've met over the years who I kind of give them the next version and they give me feedback. And there's kind of a bit of a cycle of several of those versions where I'm kind of fixing the holes, the big holes I try and work on, and then kind of keep working my way through. And each time I'm trying to clean it up in terms of adding a bit more world, a bit more depth, a bit more, stronger characters, stronger language. I know some people talk about doing a pass just for dialogue or just for the world, but I've never quite worked out how to do that. I kind of just, once I'm immersed in there, I try and tighten it. And I think it's because I don't really feel I can keep the whole book in my head at once. So I kind of just go along each chapter and sort of clean up each one and just do that several times until I get something that is passable enough so that I'm like, she'll be right, let's put it out in the world. That's
And then you send it off on the ship into the sea. There we go. Amazing. Now, you've done something very unique, and this is what I really want to dig in. As a marketing person, I'm like, oh yes, this is excellent. You're such a brilliant case study that other authors can be learning from. And because you've taken the novella approach, obviously you can have multiple release dates of the one story. Now, I'm
yes.
not sure how you released the original Biocan Chronicles. Maybe you can enlighten us with that experience. But I love how you've packaged your stories. So some of it is the marketing because you offer bundles on your website with some of your novellas. You have some merch and other bits and pieces. And then you've also published chronicled versions of all of the story pieces together. Can you share how you've used this strategy and any tips you would give to other authors considering that same approach?
Oh, yeah. This is an interesting one because I really kind of did it all a bit by accident, and it's sort of a process that I'm learning as I go. So for me, the original novellas was for me just trying to finish writing a book. I kind of just wanted to see, I don't know whether I can write something 100,000 words, but I can probably do 40,000 words. So for me, it was really just the act of me completing a book to show myself that I could complete a book, if that makes sense, in terms of like self
Yep.
reinforcement. So I started that first book. Yeah, so I wrote them as individual books, sort of one a year, for the last sort of between 2020 and 2024. Um, for me, I actually didn't do a lot of promo. I did a little bit of promo. I mean, as a brand new author, there's only so much reach you have. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I only did. I didn't do any really heavy marketing until actually the whole series was released. So, and I did that part of because when I read a book and it's like book two's coming out in 2029, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget everything that happened in book one. So
Yes.
and look, there is a nice bingeability quality of having a full series out. So while I did release them and I pushed them on social media, I didn't really do any heavy marketing pushes until the whole series was out for me because I found that I think it was something that helped me. And I was also just really afraid I wouldn't finish, to be honest.
Mm.
I
Mm.
was like, what if I never finish the final book?
Mm.
Like a lot of us have a lot of projects that we start and we just don't really finish.
Yeah, I understand. Fully understand.
Yeah, so but I think now that I've kind of got my head around it all, I'm glad that it's finished. In terms of a completed package. So I did do. It's interesting that you're talking about the different individual launches. For me, I found it very frustrating when books had cliffhangers. So when I was writing it myself, I was like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" But it is something that um, it was only later on when I finished the series, and I was like, "This actually makes a lot of sense as an omnibus. So as a complete collection." And part of that was me thinking about things like. Um, there are a couple of factors with the collection is that when you go to a book fair or a market and you're trying to sell this whole stack of books, you're like, here's this whole stack of books you want, like here it is, it's beautiful, and people are like, that pile's gigantic, and it's kind of hard to get people to cross the line sometimes. But if you're like, well, it's just kind of one story, and actually, I've got it. I don't think there's video here, but I'll try and audio explain. But like, I've got my four books here as the
Mm.
omnibus, as the individual novellas. Then my omnibus, I've just used a smaller font. It looks a lot smaller. It looks about half the size. It is far less intimidating. So I found that really helpful as a way to just be like, okay, well, here is a book you can buy, and it kind of reduces that barrier to purchase, and it also reduces that drop off. If people are buying book one, you then need to. Are they then going to buy book two and then book three and then book four? So there is actually a bit of a risk in the novellas in that you might financially get a drop off. So part of why I thought I'm going to try the novella option is so that when people buy it, they buy the full thing in one go. And it also gave me a chance to experiment with Kickstarter. So I did a Kickstarter for the omnibuses in order to get the cover design, and I've got some beautiful gold foil editions of them as well. So it was a really good opportunity for me to be like, okay, I've heard a lot of people talk about Kickstarter. I might just give it a go and see what happens. So that was actually a really great experience as well. So in terms of an overarching strategy, I don't necessarily know whether I had one, but I think I've learned a lot along the way uh, from the process.
Amazing. I love how you talk about there one of my favorite marketing concepts, which I do talk about on the podcast from time to time, is that removing barriers to entry. So you're making the consumer's job really easy. And I think sometimes us authors are so bound up in a story that we love and we've spent so much of our time and energy pouring into it, but we forget sometimes that as a consumer on the other end, they don't know anything about the story. So sometimes that just making the on ramp a little softer and a little gentler with a novella is a really interesting approach. In terms of marketing, I love that you also sell through your website. And
Yeah.
have you got any tips for people that are considering that? I know that some authors rely more on the retailers, whereas others actually want to sell their books directly. Do you have any tips for people that are considering that option?
Yeah, look, for me, I think, look, I tried to look at the best in class examples I could find of what other people were doing to learn what they could do, but to learn from them. But I think what I found, look, part of why I think selling direct on your own website is really valuable is because obviously well, obviously, I know it's obvious for those playing at home is that the profit margin is obviously a lot higher. If you're selling an ebook on your own website, even if it's 99 cents, you keep about 90 of those cents. But if you're selling on Amazon, I think you get about 30 cents. So just the volume of people you need to buy your books is smaller, but you then also need to send people to your website but a lot would argue you need to send people to Amazon as well. So I think it can be really valuable. And one of the things that I've found that I'm still working on myself that I'm learning is trying to make sure that the actual value of your shopping cart, so we call it the average order value in uh, you know for the online shopping world, um, basically just making sure that if you're pushing people to your website, that the amount that you're paying to get people there is lower than the amount that they're buying your books for.
Mm.
So, for example, I was running Facebook ads, and I think it might have cost me like $10 to get someone to my website, but then my full omnibus as an ebook is like, whatever it was $9 or something. So I'm
Mm.
losing money sending people there.
Mm.
So then I've been experimenting with things like adding digital downloads and extra kind of merch and digital products in there to kind of make that package a bit bigger, a bit more enticing, to
Mm.
try and increase that value a little bit more so that when people are buying, it actually breaks even. I sort of see some people set up Shopify stores or, an online store, and they've just got one book, and they might not be pricing it in a way for it to actually break even. And
Mm.
my lesson is, at least what I'm trying to do is basically just write more books. And I probably should have written at least one more book before setting up an online store, just so I could kind of sell a bit of a bundle, right? Like I can
Yes.
sell a couple of books, and then whatever price I'm charging is going to be a bit more profitable.
That's a good tip.
Um,
That's a really good tip.
yeah, so that's kind of yeah. So for me, I've kind of been just playing with fun different kinds of digital products, not just my ebooks, but just posters of my character art, which is my
Mm.
covers, um, book club discussion cards, just kind of making fun digital downloads. Really, just having a play in the universe and the book universe around other things that I can make. Um, yeah, and so I'm still learning the process myself, but I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Amazing. I think the book club questions idea is a really good one. When I worked in book publishing in a marketing team, a lot of what we did was creating some of that collateral, what we call collateral, that
Oh
came
yeah.
when books were published because we wanted certain books to be read by book clubs, right? Because if one person's buying it, 10 more people are buying it. And it's a really interesting strategy. So that could be a simple takeaway for people listening today. Hey, have you written a book club list of questions that anybody could pick up and you could get 15 people reading your book and hey, that's 15 sales. Like, well done. So good on you for doing some of that. I think it's really cool. For everybody listening, I will put Spencer's website in the description of the show so you can go and have a look and see some of the cool bundles that she's created. Now, aside from that amazing series, you're working on another project. You have dribbled mention of it in our chat, and now is the time to give us your pitch of what are you currently working on?
Oh, okay. So this is the official, probably global first pitch that I'm doing of this.
The time is now.
Um, so what I'm doing is I've got it's a full length novel. So I'm exploring the full length novel side of things. It is a sapphic sci-fi retelling of the Goose Girl fairy tale. So it's called The Princess Thief, and yeah, it's a bit of a twist in that it's a story of Princess Cyan whose identity is stolen by her girlfriend, and it's her journey to attempt to steal her identity
Oh my
back.
gosh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to be ordering it. It sounds amazing. And the cover just came out the other day. You just released
The
it on your
cover did,
Instagram.
did just come out. Yes, yes. So it's I've been working with a really amazing cover artist who did my previous covers as well. So um, yes, I'm really delighted to have that one out, and it's going to be another Kickstarter as well. So there'll also be some of the shiny gold foil editions coming out as well in the next couple of months. So yeah, it's a really fun project to work on and kind of play with these different mediums with as well. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Amazing. I can't wait. I need to get through your first series first, though. So I'm going to finish that and then I'm going to
It's on
order
the
the
it could
next
be on the
one
TBR.
just in time. Just in time. By the time I finish the first series, I'm hoping that your new one will be ready. So thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been so fun. Where can readers find you and your books? Are you online? I notice that you go to a lot of events. Where can people meet up with you?
Yeah. So online, I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet as Spencer Rose Writes. So I'm on Instagram with that handle and TikTok and Facebook, and I've got my website with that as well. You can buy my books anywhere you buy books, pretty much. So I'm wide across all the platforms, and as we mentioned on my website, if you buy direct from me, I also throw in some extra digital goodies,
Woohoo!
such as posters. Yeah, and I am trying to get to more and more book fairs. So in the end of this year, I'll be going to Book Fair Australia in
Yeah.
Sydney.
Is that November?
It's in November.
Mm.
Yeah. So if anyone's heading along, come and say
I'm going
hi.
to come and say hi.
Great. Come and say hi. I'll see you there.
Come and hang out with us, everybody. It's going to be great fun.
It will.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your experience. I know in a community like ours, us little Aussie indie writers, we are so far apart from each other, but I know that episodes like this can help us feel like we're a bit more connected. And I'm really excited to hear about the Princess Thief, and I am very excited to finish the Biokin Chronicles. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, and thanks for all your support of the Aussie indie author community.
All right, thank you guys. Hope you all have a good week, and we'll chat with you soon. Bye.